AI may be complicating things for some with degrees from liberal arts universities. The latest labor data shows unemployment for recent college grads is at 5.5%, well above the roughly 4% rate nationwide, and it is worse for men.
We are not prepared as a country right now, and we are certainly not prepared for what's coming in the future.
Dr. Jason Altmire is a former Pennsylvania Congressman and now president and CEO of Career Education Colleges and Universities.
You hear so much about AI and the displacements that will occur with white-collar workers, and it is definitely true that trade schools are going to become even more important. And for today, we hear from employers all the time that they can't find the skilled workers to do the jobs that are needed today. The jobs that are going to be needed tomorrow, if we're going to rejuvenate manufacturing in the country, we're going to need workers to do that. If AI is going to build data centers and Amazon's going to build distribution warehouses all over the country, we're going to need the workers who can do those jobs. And if we're going to move into solar and wind and other types of energy and maybe move back into the nuclear industry again, there's a lot of things that are going to happen in the future that are very important to America, and we do not have the workforce right now to be able to build the infrastructure that's necessary to carry out that work.
Are you seeing interest increase among our young people who are maybe thinking about ditching the traditional four-year university plan?
I've been gratified by the change in the perception of the skilled trades, of trade schools as a path for higher education for students. It used to be that, unfortunately, even guidance counselors, but parents and others who were discussing options for students to consider would look at the skilled trades as somehow substandard. That's the lesser path. But thankfully, we have moved beyond that. And people like Mike Rowe and others have helped to bring to the forefront the importance of the skilled trades. And I've heard anecdotally from schools that the student population is trending younger. Trade schools do still have a disproportionate number of non-traditional students, people in transition. They've been downsized at work, single moms, veterans returning to the workforce. But I think there is now an increase in the number of young people who are pursuing careers in the trades, people right out of high school, people who are just starting in their careers. And I think that's a really good sign for the country. I would add, gender is a big part of this too. You're starting to see a lot more women on the shop floor.
Is electrical or HVAC better, or are people basing decisions based on like what might be more lucrative?
It depends on what you want to do, what you find appealing in a career. Auto technicians, same with aviation technicians working on aircraft. HVAC, plumbing, electricians, those are jobs that are needed. You can go out in a community, and a lot of these schools also teach entrepreneurial skills. So folks can get their feet wet in the industry, get some experience, and then start their own business and do very, very well through their entrepreneurial training. So I think these are exactly the type of jobs that people who have a skill set and an aptitude for using their hands, getting in that line of work, they can grow and thrive and build a very meaningful career.
What do you think the future looks like? Is it a mix of liberal arts and trade school educated kids? Is one going to dominate more than the other with AI?
AI is going to change the type of jobs. And you hear about wild estimates of 50 or more % of white collar jobs are going to disappear. That means that particular job may not be necessary. It doesn't mean you're going to lose a net of 50% of the jobs that exist today. They're just going to be different skills. So in the future, education is going to train people how to use AI, how to benefit from it, both as leaders in business, but also the workforce. And it doesn't mean there's going to be fewer jobs. It just means they're going to be different jobs. So I think that you're going to see the number of jobs actually go up in a lot of these professions. And the future of education is going to be determined by the role of the taxpayer.
What do you mean by that? What's the role of the taxpayer? Are you talking about student loans, or what do you mean?
Loans and grants. Yeah, if you think of the Pell Grant, especially for low-income students, student loans that have to be repaid, but they're publicly subsidized. And even with community colleges, they get public subsidies through their states. So these are taxpayer-funded educational opportunities for people. And I'm certainly all for education in the country and providing opportunity, but you want to make sure as a taxpayer you're getting a return on that investment. You want to make sure that there's a payoff for society and for the taxpayer on the other end of that. And you're going to hear a lot more about that in public policy in the years to come.
Is that what you'd like? I mean, as a former congressman, is that what you'd like to see Congress debate? I mean, what would you like to see out of Congress in terms of this discussion? Or would you prefer actually maybe fewer rules and regulations and laws when it comes to dictating the future workforce?
I think if you look at our higher education system, we have always, for the most part, based our education and our training on jobs that were available yesterday rather than forecasting the jobs that are going to be here in the future. Yeah. And that is rhetoric that I have used in the past as a politician and that you have heard people talk about, but it is so much more meaningful today with the onset and the disruption caused by AI, because that is a real issue now. Being able to identify and train students for jobs that are going to be available, not just when they graduate, but in the future. You can't just have the inertia of an education system that's doing it the same way we've always done it, because we are going through a hugely disruptive time, not just in higher education, but across America in the workforce. And we want to make sure our workforce is as well trained and equipped as possible for those jobs in the future.
We keep hearing that AI isn't coming for the welders and the pipe fitters and the electricians and whatnot, but that they're coming for those white collar jobs. But is it a matter of time before the robots are fixing, people's toilets and installing, recessed lighting in my house?
If you look at welding and programs like electricians, I don't know that a lot of that can be done robotically. I've been to these welding schools. There's an underwater welding program where people are building offshore wind turbines and bridges, and they hang upside down and they weld behind them using a mirror. I just have a hard time envisioning a robot being able to do a lot of those work.
Right. So we've also heard, like Mike Rowe said, taking shop out of high school was one of the worst decisions we could have done as a country. We sent a message to kids and parents, to your earlier point, about what the future should look like, what our country's future would look like. How did we miscalculate this so badly? Was it idealism or was it globalism? Was it just us being so short-sighted? When you look back at that, what was that about?
Thankfully, it's no longer the case, what I'm about to say, but when I was younger, shop class used to be where students went if they were academically unprepared in some way, if they weren't doing as well in school as others, if they didn't seem to be on the path to go to college, which was the preferred path, then they were relegated, so to speak, to shop class and pursued a career in those programs. Thankfully, we don't look at it that way anymore, but we did go through a period where it was discouraged for students to go into those programs, and it was even discouraged for schools to offer those programs. But now there's such public attention being paid to the need for the skilled trades, and thanks to people like Mike Rowe who are out there telling the story every day. But I think all across this country, you're seeing community colleges, private schools like ours, private trade schools, and even now down into the K through 12 system, even going down into elementary school, when people talk about what are you going to be when you grow up? What are the jobs that are meaningful and that you will enjoy doing? People are now talking about the skilled trades, and they're doing it in a way that is very different than we were 10 and 20 years ago.
If a senior in high school hears this interview, hears us talking right now, and they're going back to school this month, and they're like, I don't know if I want to go to a liberal arts university and major in, like you said, like business or history or whatever. How do they start exploring trade school as an option?
One way, if you go to our website, career.org, you can find information about what trade schools are all about. I would encourage local high school students to look in their own communities and talk about maybe the possibility of an apprenticeship type arrangement or working with local employers to find out what really goes into these jobs. And it's not just whether or not you major in a program at college, a non-trade program, a traditional higher education degree. It's whether or not these trade programs have to offer some of these supplemental general education programs, because often people know what they want to do and there's such high demand for these jobs. You want them to be able to get in, get trained as well as possible, do your program and get out. I think it's really important that we prepare people as well as possible and get them into the workforce as quickly as possible.
Jason Altmire, president of Career Education Colleges and Universities, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.